And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Arcane Radio. I'm Sean, the Fork Chop Forker, a little under the weather tonight, and I've got Butch and Lon on the line with us. Gentlemen, good evening. How you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Oh, you know, I
I'm
told
good.
you my blood pressure and cholesterol. You know how it goes.
Yeah, well, welcome to the club.
I know. I feel it. Well, before we get started off here for the evening, and I let you kick it off, Phantom Clowns still running rampant across the East Coast. Actually, in my hometown of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where I'm live in Darker Day Studios, by the way, there was a clown actually seen in my aunt's neighborhood. It was hiding behind cars, trying to scare people last night. And apparently, another part of Pennsylvania, somebody was stabbed by a person wearing a clown costume.
Well, I tell you what, from what I understand today, Homeland Security and FBI are now involved with this stuff. And I think there's a warning going to be going out sometime next couple of weeks telling people do not wear clown suits for Halloween. And people are taking it seriously. I happened to look today, and I think they've had reports in 31 states now.
Well, there was just one of the states passed a real fast law, that said, we catch you, it's a felony.
Jesus Christ.
Well, one of these, pardon the pun, one of these clowns is going to get shot.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's going to happen. Somebody's going to get hurt real bad, and that'll, they're
going to jump somebody, and that person's going to have a concealed carry, and it's going to be all over.
That's just it. I mean, I'd be damned if I'd be out there in a clown suit now, and, just like being in a Bigfoot suit. Why the hell would you want to go out there?
Well, you want to
Somebody
go out there
nail
to
you.
purposely stir the crap, and somebody's going to get trigger happy, and boom, there's a one dead bozo, pun intended.
One dead bozo.
So that's where we're at with that. I just wanted to update our listeners that the Phantom Clown is now becoming the Phantom Menace, and not directed by George Lucas.
Well, the last guy that did that Bigfoot suit didn't work out too well when he jumped out in front of a truck trying to scare the driver.
Yeah, it was in Oregon. Got killed. So this is what these pranks do, guys. These guys, they get themselves all jocked up and liquid couraged or whatever it is the hell they're doing. And they're being jackasses and going out there all willy-nilly, and they're going to get themselves lined up for a good old-fashioned killering, because that's what we're seeing. People are going to take this too far. And I have no idea what it is. I guess there's no explanation for it. What you have is probably somebody starting a trend, going out there and being silly, or maybe perhaps for some viral marketing. And when people realized this was getting out of hand, they're like, oh, let's stop this marketing campaign. And then some real mentally ill people are out there like, hey, let's keep going, and now let's kick it up a notch. Bam. Now you've got this crazy clown scenario going on.
Well, what happened, from what I understand originally happened, there was a viral campaign, the original thing. This is the thing that started in Iowa, from what I understand. Then these two guys, the guy and a girl who were actual professional clowns, they thought they were going to get into it and do some, do this to advertise their business. And apparently they went out in the woods and started scaring people. And they thought that was pretty cool, and,
Well, surprise.
So it got in the news, and then, excuse me, then, it got to where it's at now. So it's just ignorance.
Well, at the end of the day, it is what it is.
We'll end up
Everybody's
having
got to learn the hard way.
We'll have tulpa clowns out there now, and just like Slender Man. And,
Well, I told you I was having that conversation the other day, and I think we actually had it perhaps offline at earlier in the week that, who's to say that some of these aren't a thought form tulpa type situation.
Yeah, it may have gotten to that. I mean, I don't know, but I suspect it could be a possibility. And, anything's possible. God, I mean, some of the stuff that we see, I mean, it's pretty unusual. So.
Well, what are we going to do, Lon?
That's it.
Just report on it and keep it going until there's a resolution to this strange event.
Well, we've got an interesting show tonight, and it kind of it does concentrate on the area where Butch and I live at in South Central PA, York, Lancaster, and Adams County in particular. Now, when people think of Adams County, they think of Gettysburg, but this book that Timothy Renner wrote has very little to do with Gettysburg. It has a lot to do with some of the other weird stuff that's going on in the other counties. And I'm telling you, there has been a lot going on over years. And he did a very good job of researching this thing. So Timothy Renner are going to be our guest later on at the half hour. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is talk about a little bit that's been posted on Phantoms and Monsters this past week. I was sent this transcription from a radio show where a gentleman by the name of Mickey in Kentucky called into, I think it was Darkness Radio. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, he said, I wanted to tell about my experience. It was 1980, and it was on the 1st of November. We were out coon hunting one night, and we were on the edge of a hayfield near the woods. We turned our dogs loose, and they took off. Me and my uncle were standing there, and we noticed a light in the sky moving like a triangle. It would go to one corner and be red, go to the next corner and be blue, go to the next corner and be white, and go to the next corner and be orange. So we watched it for about 10 minutes and then went to the center of this triangle. He said, no, it wasn't a triangle. It was more like a rectangle. And then this bolt came out of the sky that hit it and split it into 4 different pieces and took off. Now, when the bolt came out of the sky, almost like electricity went through us. All the hair stood up on our arms. I looked at my uncle and I said, what in the world is that? He was just standing there completely stiff. His eyes were like glassed over and black. I grabbed him and shook him. He just fell over and got up and was asking me what was going on. He remembers nothing about it to this day. And so it's kind of weird because after that happened to him, he got real religious. And I mean almost fanatical religious. He, to this day, says he remembers nothing about it, doesn't remember it happening, and like I said, his eyes were just like black orbs in his head. Now, the host asked him, now this was coast to coast, it was Jimmy Church asked him to explain why he went religious, and he said to hear him explain it, he thinks it was a negative experience, that God told him to get religious. Like I said, I asked him several times what was going through your head when you were standing there before you fell over. He says, I have no idea. He says, I don't know. I don't remember seeing anything. I don't remember feeling anything. I don't remember anything about it. I think there were 4 UFOs there, and that lightning bolt or energy beam or whatever it was refueling them. They were sitting there making that rectangle, waiting for that fueling, because as soon as it hit, like I said, it was like we felt it. I felt it, and boom, it was there. It was 4 of them split apart, and they just were gone in a blink of an eye. Now, this was recently on the show. First of all, you got to be thinking about. The first thing I was thinking about were the black eyes. People have been, trying to come up with the scenario why black-eyed kids or black-eyed people. I mean, is it a UFO connection? Who knows? I don't know. But in the past, I've had experiencers tell me that they found religion after UFO and non-terrestrial encounters as well. Many of the people said that alien beings, in particular higher order aliens, which were sectoids and reptilians, have told them that they are spiritually committed to a supreme energy. Is this really any different than how humans describe their spiritual beliefs? And to make a reference to this, David Eckhart was the one person who told me how these higher order aliens explained to him about being connected to a supreme energy, and they were pretty fanatic about it. Now, is it the same? Is it the same supreme being that humans, are connected to or feel that to pray to? Is this just one supreme being, one supreme energy? I don't know, but I can understand where this guy just suddenly started finding religion or, whatever it was he found. But I thought that was quite an interesting story. Any questions?
Well, there have been, over time, there have been some in ufology that have tried to put the visitations and sighting reports to let's say one religious movement or another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you said, could it be? Yeah, I guess it could. If we just keeping that open mind again, I mean, you can't shrug off everything, and you shrug off anything. So it's a fascinating way of looking at something, though, because that affects everything.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't affect a certain report, but I mean, it could affect as well. That'd be just like saying disclosure is going to happen tomorrow at 10:00.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess there's no real answer to that. I mean, I had a lot of people get back to me on this, and several of them are actually ufology researchers, crop circle researchers, a couple of people that were intrigued by that, but they had their own feelings on it, and they kind of went ranged in the gamut of their what they thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, if I had to go take an overall synopsis of what they were trying to explain, they felt that it probably wasn't related to the incident. But I just find that hard to believe. I mean, I think it had something to do with the incident, on a spiritual level. That is,
well, it sure sounds that way.
I can't think it was something that just happened physically. I mean, I think there was definitely a mental or conditioning some type, so I don't know. And
another thing, abductees also mention stuff like that.
Sure.
Time.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. I've had several abductees and experiencers tell me similar stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also had several tell me that they completely threw off religion after the experience. So it worked both ways. So I don't know. Anyway, I got another email this week from an individual who said that they had read the post I put up about the unknown activity in Mingo County, West Virginia, and he wanted to detail some Bigfoot activity that was occurring around their homes. He said, "We live in Marion County, Florida, and our retired couple. We are in a neighborhood very near the Ocala National Forest. Now, as a lot of people know, Ocala is well known for skunk ape and other Bigfoot activity and a lot of other stuff, and UFO. A lot of strange stuff has happened in that forest. And it's a large reserve. I don't think people are allowed in there by law, but apparently people do make it in there. Well, anyway, when we moved here in 2014, we were told of strange sightings in the area, in particular Bigfoot. We had moved from New York City, so I figured it was just a bunch of hogwash. just like the alligators in the New York sewers. To make a long story short, here's a list of things going on here. Howling late at night, intense guttural screams to be exact. Many times they come from different directions at one time. I know the Bigfoot are making the noise because we have encountered them. One broke my side garage door not long after we moved in. We weren't home at the time, but I have no doubt that's what did the damage. My wife saw a young one in her garden one evening. She turned on the porch light and it scampered into the brush. She described it as 4 foot or so with long dark hair all over its body. They like to leave things around the yard and patio. Usually it's other people's garbage, cans and bottles for the most part. I don't want to encourage this activity by leaving something for them, but I'm sure they mean no harm. Also, I've never seen another animal in our yard, which I believe is unusual because of where we live. We feel that the Bigfoot roams so near to our property that small animals avoid the area. This could be the wrong assumption, but the lack of raccoons, possum, etc. is strange. Now, I'm not going to try and take photographs because I believe that they know better and that it would anger them. A fellow on our block tried to set out a motion-sensitive camera. Well, the damage they endured from a Bigfoot, which included a busted camera, broken lawn furniture, and uprooted plants, changed those plans. I have seen people going into the forest at other locations, and it's obvious that they are searching for Bigfoot, even though the wildlife is protected. My feeling is that they should leave these creatures alone, though I doubt they'll ever find one. They are very keen and aloof, almost magical in the way they go about their lives. I didn't want to give out our exact location. We don't want the Bigfoot people trampling about our neighborhood. So, he actually didn't even leave me a phone number. I had to email him back. He gave me a few
people in his neighborhood or Bigfoot research people.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm quite sure he didn't know the difference, but he knows there's something to do with Bigfoot. So he may have had signs on their vehicles or something. I don't know. Apparently, from what he talked to me about, he didn't particularly care for any of them. So I'm not sure they've learned to live with the Bigfoot, or rather they'd be gone. But I think they have gained a certain amount of respect for him. So I'm sure they don't want anything happening to him. So and from what he told me, he is sure they're right out in the woods near the property, and that they don't show up when nobody's out in the yard or so. But I mean, what he's saying for the most part is pretty close to what we, some of the reports we get, especially them leaving things. That gifting that's pretty common. Though I'll be honest with you, if it is a skunk ape, I've never heard a skunk ape doing that, unless there's like food or something. I don't know. What do you think, Sean?
What was that about the skunk ape, Lon?
I said, this is the first I've heard. I mean, if this was a skunk ape, and as far as gifting, that would be, I believe, the first time I've heard of a skunk ape actually being accused of that. I mean, I know the other Bigfoot have, but I don't know of an incident down there in Florida where there's anybody talking about skunk apes gifting humans.
I guess it all kind of depends. I think you have to be into the line of thought that Bigfoot creatures are different. I think the only thing that really makes them different is their adaptation to their environment. That's why they're bigger in the PNW and in the Northeast and more flexible and not flexible, but more less bulky, lighter colored, and the hair tends to be a little different on the sightings of the creatures you see in the Southwest and
Mm-hmm.
even in parts of Pennsylvania. So I don't know if it's the fact that there is no gifting, if folks even believe in gifting, but I just don't know. Maybe it's just a behavior that's not observed in skunk ape, but I don't know. I'm starting to hear a lot more about gifting in the western part of PA. I don't know what to make of it myself.
Oh, really?
Well, a lot of the gifting from past reports has always been in that Oregon, Washington, and, in the heavily wooded areas. And I mean, leave everything from toys to food to clothing. I mean, they leave everything. And there's some pretty.
JC had that one incident where that one was gifting.
Back. I mean, they get gifts both ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, JC had that one where I reported on where it eventually gifted that Anasazi agate piece. And
that's
where he got that thing. But they were gifting back and forth for several days, putting stuff out and getting stuff. So I don't know. I think that's the first time that JC ever mentioned that, or as far as the Bigfoot that are down there in the Four Corners area. But I don't know. I'd have to talk to David Weatherly and a few other people down there about that. I mean, we have a lot of people coming on the show in the next several weeks that actually are Bigfoot hunters, so are researchers. So maybe I remember I can ask them about them.
I think it's worth the ask, Lon.
Yeah,
again, I think that Bigfoot in general is, I just don't see it being a bunch of different types of creatures. I think there's just varieties of this entity, being, creature, whatever you want to call it, that just is more adaptable to its environment. I think the behavior, though areas may seem to be more aggressive, I think they all have aggressive moments, and I think the gifting may be something of a similar behavior if it happens. I just know that folks in Western PA are starting to report more gifting, a particular group of researchers. They're having a lot of success with it.
Well, that's cool. So that's about all I have right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our guest, and we'll get him on here. Timothy Renner is an accomplished musician, as well as a member of Seekers, a cryptid and paranormal investigation group located in South Central PA. His book, Beyond the Seventh Gate, Exploring Toad Road, the Seven Gates of Hell, and Other Strangeness in York, Lancaster, and Adams counties, was published recently. Extensive research and on-site exploration was combined to dispel urban legends while revealing stranger truths. True tales of Bigfoot creatures, witches, ghosts, werewolves, and flying phantoms. So we'll go ahead and take a break here, and we'll get Timothy on the phone and to join us, and we'll be back in a bit.
I wanted to, right at the get-go, Lon, I wanted to thank you for all you do for this community. I mean, your Phantoms and Monsters is a real great resource, and you were a great help to me for throughout the book, and very kind in letting me use some encounters you collected. So thank you.
I thank you for stating that, and it was my pleasure. I mean, this part of country's part of the state is where I was born and raised, and I moved back up here a couple months ago. So, yeah, I'm glad anything I can provide for you. And it is. The book is fantastic. It's got a lot of stuff in there I never even knew about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then go ahead and start off and start telling us about the book.
Sure thing. Well, I was born in 1970, which was a great time to come on the heels of Patterson Gimlin, and grew up watching In Search Of, and just became fascinated with this stuff at an early age. And I grew up in northern Maryland, and around that time I always took an interest in folk tales and ghost stories and whatever I could. When I moved to York County, it was in the mid-1990s, and of course I immediately started asking around about ghost stories or weird stuff or anything. And at that time I was told the story about Toad Road, and the original story I heard back in the 1990s was that it was just a very haunting phrase that my wife told me. She had gone to day camp on a road called Jerusalem School Road, which parallels Toad Road on the other side of the Cadorus Creek. And a kid or a counselor there, I'm not sure which, had told her, had pointed over to Toad Road, and they just said, "That's Toad Road over there. Don't look behind you on Toad Road." And that's all that she was told. And it was very, very haunting. I always kind of filed that in the back of my head. Over time, I joined an email group. This is back in the late 90s, probably. That was dedicated to local legends and so forth. And there was a group of people on there, the kind of legend seekers and so forth. And at some point, they decided that the legend of the Seven Gates of Hell was associated with Toad Road, which when I first moved here, I had always heard that associated with Hex Hollow, which is Raymeyer's Hollow, or a local cemetery. I'd never heard that before, and then they came up with this story about a burning insane asylum, and there are 7 gates to keep people away from the ruins of the insane asylum. It sounded pretty outrageous to me. So I looked at some old maps. My father-in-law does genealogy and has maps of the area dating back to the early 1800s, if not before. And on none of these maps could I ever find an insane asylum or any building back there that bigger than a hunting cabin. So I said, no, this can't be. There was not a building like that back there. And then they changed the story and they said, well, it was the mad doctor who kept patients in his house, and his house burned down, and that's what's back there. And then the town fathers of York don't want people to know this story, and it's just pretty crazy. So I started digging, and there's nowhere in the county of York has there ever been a dedicated building that was a mental hospital or an insane asylum. It just never was. And this is an old. I don't think the road was anything ever more than a graded stone road anyway. They're not going to put any kind of hospital on a road like that. So they had blamed this doctor. Well, not they. I think subsequent ghost story books had I think people just started looking in the area to see, well, where's a doctor in the area? And they found this guy, this Dr. Belknap, who did live in the area. He lived on Trout Run Road, which is very close to Toad Road. And they said, well, he was the mad doctor. But I did a lot of research on him. He was a cardiologist, and he never worked at any mental hospital, like the ghost story book said. He seems like he was quite a model citizen. He fought in both world wars. He did a lot of work for charities around the York area. He taught at both Johns Hopkins and UPenn. So this isn't the kind of guy that's going to be, keeping mental patients in his house. So I kind of dispelled all these rumors, but what I did find is witnesses reporting a lot of strange things back there. And the things they were reporting, however, didn't have anything to do with ghosts. Well, if you go back there and you're looking for ghosts and you hear a scream in the woods, you're going to attribute it to a ghost. That's kind of where I landed on it. But what they were reporting was being stalked in the woods, things peeking from trees at them, screams in the woods. The most common thing was a woman screaming back there. Gibberish language, sounds like babies crying. And I'm sure you've read enough Bigfoot accounts to know that this is kind of Bigfoot behavior. This kind of active stalking type stuff, being paced in the woods, things like that.
Right.
So I started looking more along those lines and seeing what I could find. And I did find a newspaper report from 1973. A local man was attacked by what he called a green-haired monster right back in the area. He was hurt badly enough to get sent to the hospital. And I know green hair sounds outrageous, but if you look into other accounts like the Honey Island Swamp Monster and
Right.
and some accounts like that, they talk about Bigfoot having, mildew or mold caked in his fur, or else leaves, caked in. It may not be so outrageous, the green hair account.
We have received reports like that.
In the past?
With the greenish color moss and such. We have received reports actually in Pennsylvania. And I wanted to mention something to you as well. That area around where Cador's Furnace and up and down Cador's Creek, there have been Bigfoot sightings up around there in the last several years. I don't know which ones you may have covered, but not all of them got reported. And as well, we've been getting, and Sean can verify this, we've been getting a lot of Bigfoot reports up and down the Susquehanna on the York County side, as opposed to, the Lancaster side, like Chickies Rock in that area. But on the York County side, we have had numerous sightings in the last couple of years.
Yeah, there were
that's picking up.
There were reports up there, I guess, a couple years back, and then the fellow who did those reports, I talked to him. He's in the book. He said he found more footprints this year. This is up. I forget the township up there, but it's right where you're talking about.
Yeah,
in the northern part, close to the river. And there are reports up there of what they described as a orangutan beating up a dog. So,
is that right?
Yeah. We don't have orangutans, so. So yeah, that's definitely. And I had another report. It came too late to go in the book, but it was one of the islands in the Susquehanna where people camp. Someone told me, and again, that's right up there. That he was camping there and had a some kind of encounter. I forget the details. I think he said it was kind of pacing around his campsite and so forth.
Is that right? Wow.
So they're around.
This Toad Road thing, I heard about this when I was younger, back in the 60s, and I really didn't think much of it. But I will tell you, I know there were a lot of different stories up around that area, but the only thing I ever heard around that area was up there Cador's Furnace, and there used to be a story about an old granny magic woman that used to live up there that everybody thought was absolutely bonkers, and she'd run people off, and they weren't sure if she was actually alive or she was a spirit. So I don't know if you heard anything about that, but that was something that I heard among people around this area where I live in Hanover, but that was back in the 60s, so I don't know. I guess it's just an area where a lot of weird stuff has happened.
I think so, and I think I believe that for whatever reason, certain areas kind of draw this stuff in. I don't know why or how, but everywhere I found, Bigfoot sightings, it seems I found other stuff too in the book, just about everywhere. But these places like Toad Road, you'll find ghost stories, you'll find Bigfoot, and Toad Road just essentially led right to the furnace.
Right.
So
right.
It went up, and it was closed in 1973, I believe, 72. Hurricane Agnes washed it out, and that's when it was finally closed.
Right.
So
that's right.
It's basically a path right now. But if you go back there, and I didn't. When I was writing the book, I was trying to get the story down, and I noted all the trees pushed across the path, but I didn't really note that as Bigfoot behavior too. But the more the more I research and stuff, the more I find out. It's you know, you hear about that more and more, where they'll push over trees, you know, to try to keep people out, or maybe to mark their territory. But that Toad Road is several trees down all through it.
What part of Maryland did you grow up?
Northern Maryland, northern Baltimore County, not too far from the Pennsylvania line.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you know, I lived down there for almost 40 years, and I had a Bigfoot encounter in Maryland. That was down in southern Carroll County. But Harford County and northern Baltimore County have had a lot of sightings as well. And
I never had one. I spent my whole life in the woods, and in fact, Bob Chance had let me read through an old. It was like an old photocopied account of all these different Bigfoot sightings in Maryland. It's really interesting. Mm-hmm. But I didn't find anyone near the farm where I grew up. But I was excited to see. But I don't know why. But there weren't any.
Well, there's been a recent uptake of sightings in southern Hartford County recently, and down there around Edgewood and near to the river, you know, as it goes into the bay. And I've had a lot of people sending me all kinds of photographs of huge wood structures and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I don't know. It's I talked to one gentleman who's a police officer, and he had an encounter in his yard, actually, not far from up in Hartford County. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's just this area. I for whatever reason, and you know, when you talk about southern PA and northern Maryland, you don't really think about Bigfoot, but you know, there has been a lot of weird stuff that has transpired in this part of the country. I mean, it really has, and unfortunately, not a lot of it gets documented, and that's why I was so glad to see you come out with this book. You know, you really kind of put in perspective on what's been going on around here, and maybe more people start paying attention.
Well, I try to. What I usually say is what I do is I try to connect the dots, and
right.
In order to do that, I had to be thorough. You know, like really, really thorough, and try to just document everything I could. But I was shocked. I was shocked at the number of just take Bigfoot. If you remove all the other cryptids, from the equation, just Bigfoot sightings alone, I was shocked at how many I found. I did not expect to find that many. I just thought we're not remote enough. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
As I've learned, these creatures seem to not mind too much as long as they have a place to hide, get in and out, and there's it seems like flowing water is part of the equation, some kind of river or creek or something.
Yep.
They can get in and out. They can be there.
Well, you know, we've also been getting dogman sightings down in this region too. We had one down south of York a couple years ago, and actually had two sightings. And we're going to be talking to that witness. And there was a sighting down near Chicobus not too long ago. And in fact, that very well could have been a Bigfoot, but it just didn't sound right. You know, I'm not sure what this person saw, but the way it acted, it didn't act like a Bigfoot, and it got a pretty good size to it too. So these Bigfoot sightings, and as you know, we're trying to document what's going on around the state. You know, Maryland's had their share of them down in the Catoctin Valley for many years, and but as far as all the sightings that are cropping up now and the reports we've been getting, it's pretty interesting what some of the descriptions and some of the behavior has been.
What do you make of the dog man thing? I mean, Do you
I
think
can
it's
tell.
a flesh and you think it's a flesh and blood creature, or do you think this is more of a paranormal thing, or supernatural, I should say?
I don't know, Butch. What do you think? I think it could be. I think it could be either one. To be quite honest with you, some of the sightings we have had seem like they're flesh and blood because they're aggressive, and they just don't have that look of being something other than flesh and blood. But then again, we've had some where the actual beast itself just had that look to it that it didn't, it had like a sheen or something to it, or something that would make it look like it was not wholly flesh and blood. I mean, it's hard to, these things kind of jump out. You heard about this, you heard about the theory of the Bigfoot that are able to go in and out of, dimensions. Well, I mean, we've heard the same thing for these dogmen. So, I don't know. It's hard to tell what it is. I guess it's just like Bigfoot until we get a hold of one or get some really tangent evidence of it. It's not going to be too easy to figure out what it is.
Sure. I mean, are you finding footprints and hair? Like
some, no hair.
Some?
I don't think we've gotten any hair yet.
No,
But, we've got, Butch. I know we have had some odd prints, but I mean the sightings themselves, and these are people that had no idea what these things were. Of course, they never heard of them. It's not something that's been talked about and too much as opposed to Bigfoot. So,
well,
right,
it's a different
like
description. There's a different.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
There's a difference between the dogman and the bipedal canine. The canines are much larger, and they're all described as the same. The massive wolf head, the broad, big-chested, muscular arms, hands with claws, thin-waisted, muscled legs, hocked legs with, glowing yellow eyes, and that's in every report. They show no fear. They don't back off. And however they do it, they all seem to instill this, the thing into the viewer's mind that, if you don't leave or, things are really going to get ugly here. And we've covered a few of them quite a few of them up in the center part of the state. We're going back up again, and we have a couple in the east, and of course down south in the York area. But I don't know what we're dealing with. It could be interdimensional because the very first one we got was where one walked out of the woods in front of a guy and his roaring dogs that wanted to tear it apart, and walked on the other side, and the creature paid no attention to the guy at all. Like they weren't even there. No dogs, no man. He just strolled across the road and in the other side of the woods. Could they be skinwalkers? Possibly. Could they be flesh and blood? Possibly. But until we get more evidence, we just have to keep looking for what we got.
Now, in my book, I have a couple of these sightings of what they describe as kind of Anubis sort of creatures, which I'm assuming is less wolf-like and without the hocked legs. Do you get any of those reports?
You mean more jackal-like looking?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm trying to think offhand if we had any like that, Butch. I don't think so.
All of ours were wolf-like. I mean, they were all described as a very large wolf head, short ears, typical looking wolf. I mean, nobody described anything but a wolf. Nobody described a dog or, Bigfoot looking creature. They all seem to have the same color of very dark brown or black, short fur. And we have a couple with the glowing lights, the sheen around or the halo around the creature.
That's very, very interesting. I'm curious to. It seems like the sightings not just here, but all around are just growing and growing with the canines, the upright canines.
Yeah, Linda Godfrey's been working on this for years now, and of course, most people was the Michigan and Wisconsin sightings, but we're getting them in Ontario. Of course, Ohio's had sightings. Maryland, of course, had sightings. Yeah, I mean, it's something that's just not one location. But of course, if you go back and look in history, there have been sightings in Pennsylvania, but it's just a fact that people, I guess, didn't want to talk about it a whole lot. They're historical sightings, and I mean, I think the earliest one I have is like the 1840s, but it's the interesting thing about Pennsylvania is, and that the immigrants came from Germany, and it picked up as far as the lore and the werewolf lore and the type of these type of things when the Germans people moved into Pennsylvania and northern Maryland, and for whatever reason these beasts started being seen and recognized then. So
yeah, and even in the Amish and Mennonite communities, especially the old Amish, old Mennonite, those stories still abound.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I always say that in Pennsylvania we have so much werewolf stuff that we have the name for a ghost of a werewolf, the spook wolf, which I never ran into anywhere but here.
Yep. Yeah, I think I heard about a spook wolf years and years ago, but I saw your book, and I hadn't thought about that, and it brought back some memories because I remember a relative talking about a spook wolf when I was younger, and they were Mennonite, so that kind of thing's been going around my family for a long time. I mean, these kind of stories, and you wonder if they're real or not, but I guess I people are seeing something. I mean, that's a fact. People are seeing something, and when you do talk to them and get the story out of them, you can tell if they're telling you the truth or not.
Oh, sure.
And they are seeing something.
Well, it's like I say in regards to Bigfoot sightings, and Dogman, if we're going to trust an adult can tell the difference between a bear and an upright walking hominid, and I think most adults can. I mean, most people can look at a bear and know, if they see a Bigfoot, it's not a bear. And we're going to have to trust them when they say the thing had a wolf head too. I mean, if you're going to trust them as far as to say it's an 8-foot walking hominid, then you can't discount it if they say it has a wolf head. You got to take them at their word for that too.
Hmm. So, what other phenomena you want to talk about in this down here in South Central?
Oh, well, the main areas I looked into were the Toad Road area, which again I found that to be cryptid activity. It had been reported to be ghost activity, but I think it confirms more with cryptid activity. And in fact, I found there was a creature from Pennsylvania folklore called the Hide Behind, and the nature of that creature was that it stalked people, and it took the last people in line. And they said the Native Americans, when the Europeans got here, they said only the bravest should be the last in line because they can be relied on never to look behind them. And when you look behind you is when you get taken. I guess people would be like, they'd see the hide behind and they get struck with fear. So that actually reminded me of David Paulides' work because the missing 411 stuff, he found that often it's the last in line that's getting taken. So I started to look for missing people up there, and I did find in March of 2014 a 61-year-old woman was dropped off to walk alone in the area. She's gone missing without a trace. And I found 2 dead hunters right in the area of Toad Road. One was from the 1920s. He was found dead. He had discharged a shotgun 2 times and was found dead. And in recent years, in the past 3 years, I think a hunter was found dead. He was assumed to have fallen from his tree stand. So there's some, mysterious deaths that go along with it up there, and missing people too.
I wanted to ask you about that photograph you took on Trout Road, the one that looks like the wolf or the canine type thing. What do you think that was? Do you think that was pareidolia, or you think it was actually something that you captured?
I honestly, I go back and forth on that, because whatever it was, I didn't know it was there. I was just taking pictures when I was back there. I wanted to take as many pictures as I could to document things. And when I saw that picture, I saw that dark spot in the picture, and I had to blow it up. I don't know. The people that were with me, one of them says it's just pareidolia. The other one says we caught something. And I go back and forth. I don't know. I
think you got an apparition of some type.
It could be. I mean,
I really do.
The eye looks like it's glowing. It's a very odd thing.
Yeah.
And the thing that caught me was that glowing eye.
Yeah, but there's nothing underneath it. That's the strange thing about it. It's like a floating head and neck, and I just think that is some type of apparition or weird anomaly. I don't think it's pareidolia. I just think it's it's something that actually manifested, and you're lucky enough to capture it.
It was pure luck, because I didn't see anything when I took that picture. Well, for instance, I mentioned this in the book, my wife's a pretty diehard skeptic, which I'm happy about. I think it's good to have a skeptic in my life, who can point at stuff and say, you're being silly. Let's, look at it this way. And she usually has good logical explanations for things. But when she saw that picture, she said, "Whoa, that is really weird. That is eerie." So that kind of let me know I was onto something there.
Yeah, you also talking about in the book about spook lights, and that's a phenomenon that we see with Bigfoot sightings a lot, where these strange lights just show up, particularly in wooded areas. I've had several, even with people I know that research in the state. Several spook lights or glowing orbs or something like that shows up around the time a Bigfoot is suspected to be in the area or was in the area.
Yeah, I found that again and again. I guess it's inconvenient for some people who just want to think of it as just an ape in the woods. But these lights go along with it. I kind of fall down on the side that it's a paranormal creature in that it's outside of the normal, and it's superhuman in that it has abilities that are beyond ours. It's certainly quicker, stronger, can see in the dark. It has abilities beyond ours. But I think I'm not sure if it's supernatural or if there's something like quantum physics going on, because quantum physics, before we understood it, seemed very, very spooky. And if you don't understand quantum physics, it seems like magic that's going on. So I don't know if there's something. They leave footprints, they leave hair, they eat, they leave scat. I'm falling down on the side that they're natural creatures, but that they have access to something that we don't. There's some way that these lights play into it, and the footprints that just walk off into the middle of fields and stop, and things like that. And of course, people reported them just disappearing, which, I mean, what's that? Maybe they're that fast that it seems like they're disappearing, or maybe they're disappearing. I don't know, but the lights do seem to play into it somehow. I
had spent a lot of time in Hex Hollow when I was younger, And I had been there a couple years ago too, but I know we used to see these lights in and around there as well, especially several hundred yards in front of the house into the hollow itself. And we used to see them out there in the field. And, that was something that we actually was pretty constant. What they were, I have no idea. I mean, now I know you've been down there.
I was down there today.
Were you?
Yeah.
What is your impression of that place? Now, I'm sure not everybody knows the history of it. Maybe you can give a brief history of what the Raymeyer Hollow, Hex Hollow, what that is.
Well, it's called Hex Hollow because the so-called hex murder occurred there. One of Pennsylvania's many, I guess the most famous Pennsylvania hex murder, which is a man named Nelson Raymeyer, who, in my mind, he was just a healer. He really wasn't a witch or anything, but he was a proponent of powwowing, this local kind of faith healing.
And I will say Nelson Raymeyer was a relative.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh,
on my grandmother's side, yeah.
You might be related to my wife. We'll have to do some genealogy here. Cool. But so this fellow named Blymeyer had decided someone had put a curse on him, and he went to see several powwow doctors in the area, and finally saw this woman they called the River Witch of Marietta.
Right.
Who lived in Marietta, of course. And after several visits to her, the story goes, he handed her a dollar bill, and she handed it back to him and said, "Unfold it, and you'll see the face of the person who put the curse on you." He unfolded it and saw Raymeyer's face. So he decided, he asked her how to break the curse, and she said, "You got to get his hex book," which would have been The Long Lost Friend. It's a common book in the area that deals with powwowing. Or you got to get a lock of his hair, and you got to bury him 6 feet in the ground. So Blymeyer got the help of these two local boys, Hess and Curry, kind of convinced them that they'd had a curse put on them too, and they all went down to Raymeyer's place 2 consecutive nights. On the second night, the first night they couldn't work up the nerve to take them on, and Raymeyer, he was a healer. He seems like a pretty righteous guy. He invited them in and gave them breakfast the next morning, kind of sent them on their way. And they showed up the following night. He invited them in again, and that's when they got kind of hostile with him. And they asked, where is it? Where is it? And he thought they were talking about his wallet, so he pulled out his wallet, and then they just beat him to death. Tried to light the place on fire to burn it down. The fire didn't take, and they left. And big trial ensued afterwards. Very famous at the time. It was kind of like as big as the O.J. trial, I think, in its day. Newspapers all over the country covered it. But so it became kind of associated with witchcraft and ghosts and spooky stuff. But Hex Hollow, the Raymeyer Hollow, has had stuff going on there, but well before the Hex murder. I have found stories about what they called a fiery ghost that they were seeing in there, like a flaming ghost they were seeing in the 1890s. And they talk about Spook Lights in the newspaper back then too, which I've seen not in Raymeyer's Hollow, but coming out. Like I was in Raymeyer's Hollow and I saw them on the hills kind of outside of the hollow. So it's definitely a spooky place.
Yeah, my experiences down there as well. It's of course, I think you might have mentioned something in the book, but I had I don't know what it may have been an apparition. It had to be an apparition, but this man didn't have a face, and I know it scared the living crap out of me. I was just a kid in high school. And I jumped over the barrier, got back in the car, and hauled ass home. But that was the damnedest thing one of the strangest things I had ever seen. But I had been there after that, and like I said before, I just always got the impression that something was hanging around down there. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, now I'm playing what my wife calls chess with someone or something down there. I found a stack of a stack of stones, and I thought, well, this is interesting, and I've been moving them, and every time I come back, they're in a different pattern. I don't think it's. I don't know. I don't think it's people, but it could be. It absolutely could be. I have no way of knowing. It seems like the other day I moved him into a different pattern. I left came back in 20 minutes, and something was added to it. Within 20 minutes, I didn't see any other people there. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, it's and if people want to read about the murder, I guess the best book is Hex, which was written by Arthur Lewis. Yeah, Arthur Lewis. And I read that book when I was younger.
Yeah,
it
might be out of print now, but that is, I think, the best one. I agree.
Yeah, it kind of gets into exactly what happened. Now, there was a movie made years ago, not too long. Well, I guess back in, I don't know, the 80s, but it was titled back in 88 called Apprentice to Murder. And Donald Sutherland, yeah. And it kind of brushed around, the Hex murder, and he was out to kill the old witch, and that he ended up in prison. So he kind of paralleled it to a point, but it was kind of a weird movie. It really was.
Yeah,
it was odd.
There's a documentary released recently. I think it's on Amazon. It's just called Hex Hollow. It does a pretty good job of telling the story.
Yeah.
And a pretty fair job too. I've seen some local authors give talks and stuff, and they're often pretty hard on Raymar, who in my mind was nothing more than a victim. And I think this documentary is a little more fair all around to all parties.
Have you ever had an experience? Have you ever had any experience with any powwowers at all?
Well, my wife's family, her great grandmother was, and her mom was taken when she was young. She was taken to powwowers. It was just very common around here. I didn't live in the area, so by the time I moved here, it was kind of not as much a going concern. But my wife's family, very much so.
Yeah, we had relatives that were actually doing it back in the 60s yet, and I had been raised around a few of them. But as you know, I mean, powwowing is considered illegal in Pennsylvania. There's actually a law in the books that outlaws it, and that was put in the books not long after the trial. But,
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still keep it. I have a long lost friend I keep with me all the time. It's almost like a talisman to me.
It's a neat little book. I try to collect different editions. I can't afford the real old ones, but there's been so many editions when they come up at an antique store or an auction or something for cheap. I always pick it up, and I have a whole collection of all these different editions of it.
Yeah, it is an interesting little book. I wouldn't put my faith in a lot of it, but some of the spells are kind of interesting to read. Then, of course, it in the back of it, it gives you what each spell is for, how you can treat each ailment and all. And that's some really weird stuff. But some of the stuff I heard when I was younger, it doesn't surprise me. Because I have seen people do some of the weird stuff that's in there. And I had an aunt that used, just for the family, used a few things that were very similar to what were in the book. I wasn't sure what it was back then, But yeah, I know she knew of it. But like you said, that Appalachian folk magic and granny magic, or what people called it as well, that was pretty prevalent up and down the Appalachian Mountains in Pennsylvania, all the way down into Kentucky and such. It's and there's still a lot of root conjuring and all down in the Carolinas. So, it's still going on, but like you said, it's not as prevalent as it used to be.
They talk a bit about it in that Hex Hollow movie. They have some modern day practitioners in there and stuff.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I know a few of them that are still around. I know there's a guy up in Reading that I don't think he advertises a whole lot, but I know of one. And every once in a while, you'll read about another person that is actually interested in it. So, yeah, it's interesting. It really is. So
I would hazard a guess that with the families that have been here for generations, there's probably more of it around than is made public.
Well, my family were all Amish on both sides. I mean, not my mother's side, but on both sides of my grandparents. They were all Amish when they came over here. And so when they settled, my family the homestead's actually still there. I don't know if you know of it or not, but you know where Spriggetsville is, out by the York County Prison?
Oh, yeah.
Right on the grounds of the York County Prison is it's an old house there. And that's the original Strickler homestead. So,
okay.
Yeah, I know Secret Service used to have an office there, but I don't know who's there now. But some people in the family still do take care of it. So, but when they moved over here to Pennsylvania in the early 1700s, that's where they settled at. So they just spread out over the three counties. And this folk magic and folk healing was pretty prevalent. And even though not all the people remained as Amish, most of them became Mennonites, but then later Reformed Church. They still have knowledge of it. So, anyway, you I know you. Now I don't know if you went down there, but you know of the and you did, and you were nice enough to put something in the book about it, about my encounter with the Conewago, what I call the Conewago Phantom. I know the people around there call it Old Red Eye, and in fact, I had been down there about 10 years ago, and I was just looking around, and some guy came up to me and was mentioning about Old Red Eye, and I really didn't know what he was talking about until I started thinking about it, and then when he started saying with people how to describe it, then I knew that's what he was talking about. So then, but I know I have received all together about 6 sightings of this thing up and down the Conewago Creek. And I don't know if have you run into any other sightings of this thing or anything similar to that?
No, I didn't ask around too much though. I went up there one day and looked around. There weren't too many people around. And if I'd have seen somebody out mowing or something, I might have stopped and asked them, anything strange around here or anything. But there just weren't too many people around. I didn't want to go knocking on doors.
Yeah.
It seems like if somebody's out and I did this up by Toad Road a lot too. If somebody's out and they're in their driveway or something, and I'm walking by, it's easier to talk to them than and you can kind of strike up a conversation a little bit.
Absolutely.
Ease into the questions about the weird stuff. You don't, you're not just hitting them over the head with, have you seen anything weird straight out? But yeah, I didn't see anybody around. I took a picture for the book, or I think my wife did, of the sign, the Camp Conewago sign there. but there just weren't any people around, so I didn't really get a chance to ask him any questions. So I was just going.
Well,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the scout troops don't camp in the woods anymore, as they used to years ago. I don't know if it's because of that or what it is, but that place hasn't changed. It's interesting. I had seen recent pictures of it, and that place has not changed at all. And I don't know. I haven't had a new report in almost 3 years, though. That thing that we had that people were seeing in Lancaster, I don't know if that is related to it or not. That thing was peering in people's windows. It looked like a gargoyle. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that was. But
Stan Gordon had some reports of gargoyle things from other parts of the state. I know. That's why in the book I kind of separated it out, just because he had these other, what people were describing as gargoyles, which, again, it may or may not be a separate thing, but it seemed to warrant separating out, at least.
Well, these gargoyle sightings have been in Butler County for the most part. There's a lot of other winged creatures that, have been reported. As far as around here, I mean, other than, that Phantom and that one up there at Gifford Pinchot that somebody saw and said it looked like a pterodactyl, and the thing in Lancaster, I really don't know of anything else, though. This thing we saw up there in Conewago, I think I really can't. It's hard. It was hard to describe. It's dark for one thing, and but we did see a wing structure. It took off so damn quick we couldn't really get a good look at it. We couldn't even get our flashlights on it quick enough when we first saw the eyes, because this thing just shot up in the air with a whooshing sound, and it was really strange. And
wow.
we thought we were nuts, and started getting. So I wrote something about it, and I started getting reports. The first guy was up there at Dick's Dam, and then, of course, the scout leaders started contacting me. So, actually the newer sightings have been actually going downstream, if you notice that. And the last one that I had was above York, going towards Dover. So, I mean, that's
interesting, because it's like it's sort of following the creek towards the river then. Yeah,
I mean, it just, I don't know. I mean, that's just, but that's spread over 20 years now too. But
right.
Who knows? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The one you had with the scouts who described, were they just like a dragon? That was pretty intense.
Yeah, this scoutmaster, if now I remember what he said, when he wrote the letter, and I talked to him later, he said, I thought these kids were crazy. I thought these kids were just playing with me. And, because they were scared, but they said it looked like a dragon, but they thought it had feathers on it, and that it was about 6 foot high, and it had a tail or something on it. I remember what he was telling. He had written, but he told me, he said, when they came back to the campsite running and we're all flipped out, he said, I just thought they were playing a game with me. He said, I didn't buy into any of it. He said, and that was a year or so ago, and I still didn't believe until I read it on your site. And so there you go. So I don't know what they saw. I guess it may have been the same thing.
Well, here again, we have something going on by running water, by a creek, and your sighting was where two creeks met, right? Where they
right there at the forks, yeah.
Yeah. So there's something to that.
Well, there has always been paranormal activity that being associated with running water. I mean, I know a lot of houses that I have investigated have had either underground streams running near it, or a spring nearby, or something that had to do with water, or, fresh water. And,
Right.
Why that is, I don't know. It just seems that they turn into hotspots. So, I don't know. It's
I mean, almost every place in my book was either right along the river or near one of the creeks. I mean,
is that right?
Without fail. Yeah, that's well, Chickies Rocks right by the river. That Hansgraff Cemetery, which that's what I wanted to ask. You said Butch was from Lancaster.
Yeah, he's from up in northern Lancaster County.
You ever heard of or dealt with that Hansgraff Cemetery at all?
Just the stories, and just like the powwows, we in Lancaster County, they're still said to go on. I don't know how true that is, but take Chickies Rock. I mean, right along the river, all the weird stuff that happens up there. We have some cemeteries in and around the Reading area that apparitions are seen all the time. Some of very old people, when I say very old, I mean back in the turn of the century, that were well-known businessmen, bar owners, gangsters. Those stories, they're still alive and well. I mean, I started hearing those when I was a kid. I live about 50 minutes from where you are.
Okay.
And I was born and raised in Reading, but the stories, when I read your book, first, kudos on the research.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Because I know what a pain that can be. But this whole area, the York, Lancaster, Berks County. One of the things that always kind of bugged me was there's a lot of old furnaces, old iron furnaces and stuff in Lancaster County and in Berks County and York and up in the Allentown area. And I did get to go to one of those in the Allentown area, and it shut down many, many years ago. But it originally was an Indian campsite, and it's probably been one of the spookiest places I've ever walked around in my life. It just, matter of fact, even after reading your book, I said to my wife, we should be thinking about moving to Florida or something. It's this whole south central, and southeastern Pennsylvania. It just abounds with stories of creatures. And when you were talking about the red-eyed thing at the lady's window, is that the one that was in Columbia, Lon?
What's that? The gargoyle thing?
Yeah, with the red-eyed at the lady's window, was that in Columbia?
That was in Lancaster. That was actually in Lancaster City.
Oh, in the city,
because
I know I kind of remember one in Columbia, but the whole area is just ripe with stories that go back way back. And where I live, I'm smack in the middle of old order Amish and old order Mennonite area, and they'll talk sometimes no, but the stuff still goes on. I mean, it's I just read a story about a powwow that was going on out in Ohio, right in the Pennsylvania line, and so it's an odd area. It's rife with reports of all types of apparitions, beings, orbs, lights, screams in the woods, creatures of all types. And it's like we said in the very beginning of the show, these people are seeing something. I mean, you can't just go out there and label them all as lunatics. And, the research just goes on and on and on. It's just the way it is. But
I think the Chestnut Ridge area out in western PA gets a lot of credit, but I mean, whatever. I don't know if these areas are vortexes or whatever, but I think we got quite a bit going on in this area too. And
there are a lot of hot spots in this state, and I believe that as well. I think South Central PA has got, I don't know, it's just an overall area, but I think a lot of it goes back to the original settlements that were here. This area, Adams, York, even Lancaster County, these, before the settlers came in, there's a lot of weird and bad stuff going on, between Indian tribes. A lot of warring in this area.
And that goes all the way up to the central part of the state.
The Susquehannock and the Shawnee, the Lenape, they were all fighting in and around this part of the state, and there's a lot of bad energy, I believe, around here, to be quite honest with you. So I don't know if that manifests into some of the activity we see or not, but it's something to think about. When we do get a lot of these dogman stories, we do look into also the history of the area, and people come up with all kinds of interesting stories, but if you start digging around, a lot of times you come up with a little bit of something. But I think Pennsylvania in particular had, and just because of the area itself, I just it just seemed like a crossroad to a lot of different types of people. And there's I think there's just a lot of bad jujus at some point in this state.
Well, and until 1754, there were no white men in this state.
No. There were. I mean, my family came in 1734, but it was the late 1600s anyway. But they all had to move. They all had to move out what was there before.
Yeah, so, a very sparse population, and the indigenous pretty much ran the show.
Yeah. So I tell you, quite honestly, I don't know if you're going to be researching for a second book, but believe me, I think in 4 or 5 years you may come up with another book or have enough.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep track of stuff. I want to keep documenting things where I can. I think my next book is probably just going to be a straight Bigfoot book. We'll see, though. I see how things pan out here. I kind of feel like I just finished this one, so I don't want to box myself in too much here.
Yeah,
but, that's kind of the way I'm leaning. I want to do something kind of a bit more less locally focused. I'll have local stuff in it for sure, but it won't be just local stuff.
You're going to spend a lot of time in Fayette County.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to research PA, that's where you're going to know that for the most part. But these sightings are statewide, so like you had asked me once before. You need help, don't hesitate to get a hold of me.
Sure, yeah.
I think you're very fortunate to get Bob Chance to help you out, because that guy, he's had his information for a lot of different things, and he's one of the foremost researchers down there in that area in Maryland. So you were lucky to be able to research.
Very, 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 very kind to me. I think I bugged the heck out of him, but he just plopped down his whole. He had a whole. It must have been 4 or 5 inches thick, his file of sightings. He just plopped them down in front of me one day and said, "Go, get what you need."
Oh, so very good.
I sat in his house and just poured through them and made notes. And it couldn't have been nicer. Couldn't have been more helpful.
Very cool. Well, Timothy, I want to thank you for joining us. And it was an interesting show, and I hope the audience enjoyed our stories. Since it involved, not only me, but you and the things you found out. But I had to get you on here because, I didn't know about the book until I accidentally ran across it. And then I thought, yeah, I remember this guy. And so I had to get the book, and I'm glad I did. And you were just on Coast to Coast the other night, weren't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That go well?
I think so. Yeah. It went pretty. That was a surprise. They called me because I guess I'd been on Darkness Radio a couple weeks before that, and then they called me out of nowhere.
Cool.
I mean, I had tried to get on, but I never heard anything from them. But then I guess after the Darkness Radio, they called me. So yeah, that was very nice.
Did you get a lot of calls from the area?
Just a handful, actually. It was.
Did you?
There were a couple, but most of them were from out of the area.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks again, and I'm pretty sure we'll be keeping in touch.
Okay,
so,
very
like
good.
I said, you need anything, you let me know.
Very good. Thank you.
You take care now.
All right.
Take care.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Well, there we go, folks. Timothy Renner.
Indeed. Good
Red
program.
Line, PA.
Lots of good information there tonight, guys.
Oh, it's I had to get him on. It's
The book
I've been
is
toting.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's
it looks
amazing.
great.
I mean, anybody that's looked into any part of it, the Bigfoot or the stuff that's been going on in this state for many, 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 many years, and the history of it and the places, and he has the pictures, locations. He got maps. He's got everything there. He's got all kind of reports. I mean, it's just an amazing amount of research that went into that book. And I would say to anybody who's out there that has any interest in the lore and the strange things that happen in our state, this is a must-have book. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So next week we've got Tim Beckley and Claudia Cunningham, who knows a bit about Men in Black, and of course Butch is going to be with us because the book that Timothy wrote, Butch has a chapter in there. So,
Butch, you're making the rounds in people's books.
yeah, you got in Timothy's book a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So they'll be joining us next week, and that should be quite an interesting show. It's going to be a little bit of everything. That book has all kinds of creepy creatures in. So between Dogman, Men in Black, and Bigfoot, and ufology, and run the gamut.
Yeah, it covers the whole gamut. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and join us next week. And have a good evening and have a good week.
Take care, everybody.